Welcome to the Justice Room. Your life, your rights, your options. Experience and learn from discussions with legal professionals and other experts about the law, its challenges, and how it could affect you. Here at the Justice Room. Welcome to the Justice Room. Welcome to the Justice Room. This is Jay Jacome, your host. Today we have brought Ms. Sharon Thomas, attorney at law, to the show. Thank you for coming on the show today, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to talk to you a little bit today about children and the legal system.
Yes.
And I understand that there's two different, or there's a couple actually, of categories that we can talk about. We can talk about delinquency, we can talk about dependency, we can talk about family law cases with children, we can talk about quite a variety of different topics with children in the legal system.
Yes.
But today I'd like to focus in on children and delinquency law. So what is delinquency law?
Well, delinquency deals with minors, children who are under the age of 18, who could not be charged as an adult for criminal offenses.
Now, in Florida, they've talked about, and there are cases where they've been charged as an adult.
Yes, but delinquency court would not handle those children. Children who are charged as adults will be handled strictly as adults in adult courts.
Okay.
They will be in the Orange County Jail. They will not be stored or detained with other children, because children who are in the delinquency system, if they are detained, they're detained at the Juvenile Justice Center for Children.
Okay. So now children under the age of 18, delinquency, they have to have been arrested for a crime.
Yes. Either arrested or given a notice to appear. Sometimes when a person is stopped by an officer, if they're a juvenile, and it's kind of similar in adult court as well, sometimes they're not arrested at the scene but are given a notice to appear, maybe for like a minor traffic offense or something like that. But when you're speaking of your more severe offenses, felonies, and things of that nature, generally there would be an arrest. And after that arrest, there would be what we call a detention hearing, which is equivalent to an adult first appearance.
Is there a specific age group, such as, let's say it's a child that is 7 years old? Could that child that committed an offense go into a delinquency court?
Yes. There is no limitation on when a child can be arrested for an offense. There have been children in elementary school that were actually sent off to programs as a sentencing alternative where they could not remain in the community. So there really is no true age limit. A crime is a crime, and if it is appropriate to be prosecuted, then a child will be.
Okay, so if a child could be 5, a child could be 18, anything under the age of 18, they commit a crime, they could be prosecuted potentially.
Yes.
Okay. So now if a child is going through a detention hearing, what is the procedure for that?
Well, if a child is arrested, oftentimes the parents are not with that child. It could be a child that's skipping school and out doing something that the parents are totally unaware of. At that point, when a child is arrested, law enforcement does not necessarily notify the parents. At that time, they're just there to, maintain the law. So they're going to try to meet with the child and find out what happened. And if probable cause is established by the law enforcement officer, that child will be detained or arrested. At that point, that child gets transported to what we call the Juvenile Assessment Center. Okay,
but now I want to interrupt you because in adult court, adults have the right to their invoke, I guess, the Fifth Amendment, otherwise known as, their rights to a lawyer. They don't have to say anything. So now, why would law enforcement speak to a child and the child most likely is not going to invoke their rights. Does a child have a Miranda right just like an adult would?
Yes, children have the same rights that adults do, because those rights are rights that are given by the Constitution. The right to be free from self-incrimination and the right to an attorney. Self-incrimination being the Fifth Amendment, right to an attorney being the Sixth Amendment. Children are afforded the same rights. Now, oftentimes juveniles do not know to assert those rights.
Right.
And when they do not assert those rights, depending on the facts and circumstances, later on in their defense case, sometimes confessions from minors can be overturned, but not in all cases.
Okay, so if a child is going through a case and the police officer does not issue his Miranda warnings, or do they have to explain to the child his rights about the right to a lawyer, the right to not say anything?
No, that is not the duty of law enforcement to explain what the rights are. The only time that a child or any person who's been arrested by law enforcement would have to have Miranda, of course, would be if there's going to be what we call custodial interrogation, meaning that at the point that law enforcement determines that the child is not free to leave, that would be considered custodial interrogation if they're going to talk with them about what their arrest is for. If they do, at that point, they are supposed to advise of Miranda as long as it's custodial interrogation.
But now if they're taking the child and they're transporting the child to JJC or the Juvenile Justice Center,
yes,
that's detention.
Yes, that would be a custodial interrogation if they initiate a conversation with the child.
Okay.
Now, if the child makes spontaneous statements in the back of the car because they're afraid they're going to the Juvenile Assessment Center and don't want to go, and all of a sudden start yelling stuff out in the back of the car, well, that's not custodial interrogation. That's a spontaneous statement.
Right.
But
that's no different than an adult.
Yeah.
Okay, an adult, they make comments that they probably shouldn't make, and why we've had shows about, if you are considered a person of interest, or if you're being talked to by the law enforcement, or if you're being arrested for something, that you should consider not saying anything at all. So what would you say that would be a correct statement for a child as well?
Yes. I mean, if a child wants to take the time to speak with an attorney, then they should assert the right to have an attorney and say, I wish to not make a statement at this time, and just leave it at that.
Okay, now let's go through the real quick on the process of delinquency. They've been arrested, or they've been given a notice to appear. They go through a detention hearing. Now they're in the arraignment stage. Would that be correct? Those first three stages?
Yes, that would. At the detention hearing, though, an important step, though, is once they're assessed at the Juvenile Assessment Center, their assessment is a little different than it would be for an adult, because at that point, the Juvenile Assessment Center would attempt to notify a parent or someone that they've been detained. Unlike an adult, once an adult is arrested, it's on the adult to find someone or call collect. But the Juvenile Assessment Center will try to notify the parents so that, of course, there's no missing child out there that a parent does not know about. Likewise, the Juvenile Assessment Center has employees that are responsible for doing what we call score sheets for children to see if they score detention. There are certain points that are assessed determining whether the child should be detained or released to a parent.